Hi guys and welcome to Tutes Online. Today we're going to go through the visceral arteries. Okay, let's start off with a little bit of information about anastomoses. Anastomoses allow blood to bypass capillaries. They can be end-to-end or they can be transverse. So they can look like this or they can look like this. They're usually found when temperature regulation or blood pressure regulation is concerned, and they help in directing the blood flow. They can be artery to artery, they can be vein to vein, or they can be artery to vein. Okay, let's learn about some features of the arteries. First of all, arteries have their own blood supply, and this is called vasa vasorum. And the outer parts of the artery are supplied by this vasa vasorum. You have systemic arteries, which carry oxygenated blood, and you have pulmonary arteries, which carry deoxygenated blood to the lungs. Arteries don't have valves except for the aorta and the pulmonary trunk. So blood flow is usually via pressure. We have vasomotor nerves, which penetrate the adventitia. And these are sympathetic, which means they lead to contraction of muscle of the blood vessel. You also have hitchhikers on arteries, and these are outside the adventitia. And they can be sympathetic or parasympathetic. And you also have sensory fibers which accompany both. Moving on to our aortic arch. We have our aortic arch here. And this is at the level of the sternal angle. Coming up, we have the brachiocephalic trunk. And branching off this, we have the right subclavian artery. And the right common carotid artery. Moving to the next one along, we have the left common carotid artery. And the next one along after that is the left subclavian artery. Let's continue on. We'll do the internal thoracic arteries. So you have your brachiocephalic trunk, your right common carotid artery, and your right subclavian artery. Branching off this is the internal thoracic artery. And our internal thoracic artery travels down and branches further into the superior epigastric artery and the musculophrenic artery. Coming off the thoracic artery, we have small intercostal branches. Coming off the musculophrenic artery, we have 3 more intercostal branches for ribs 7 to 9. So let's label this. We have the brachiocephalic trunk. We have the right common carotid artery. We have our subclavian artery. Here is our internal thoracic artery. And this arises 2 centimeters above the sternoclavicular joint. The internal thoracic artery runs approximately 1 centimeter lateral to the margin of the sternum, behind the costal cartilages. Then we have our superior epigastric artery, and our musculophrenic artery. These are our anterior intercostal arteries. Continuing with our epigastric artery, so we have our internal thoracic, we have our musculophrenic, and our superior epigastric artery. Our internal thoracic artery branching into the musculophrenic artery and the superior epigastric artery. The superior epigastric artery then anastomoses with the inferior epigastric artery, which in turn anastomoses with the external iliac artery. So we have our internal thoracic artery, our musculophrenic artery, our superior epigastric artery, our inferior epigastric artery, and our external iliac artery. Moving on to our thoracic aorta, or descending aorta. We have our posterior intercostal branches. So the posterior intercostal branches anastomose with the anterior intercostal branches, which come off the internal thoracic artery. So the posterior intercostal arteries are branches of the descending aorta, whereas the anterior intercostal branches are branches of the internal thoracic artery. Let's move on to the abdominal aorta. And this is the aorta once it's passed through the diaphragm. Okay, first off we have the celiac trunk. and the celiac trunk branches into 3 arteries. The first is the common hepatic artery. The second is the left gastric artery. And the third is the splenic artery. Coming off just below the celiac trunk is the left middle suprarenal artery. Moving on down, we have the right middle suprarenal artery. Then we have the superior mesenteric artery. And this is going to supply the midgut. Underneath we have 2 more arteries, and these are your renal arteries. Then we have another 2, and these are your gonadal arteries. Then we come to another group of arteries called your lumbar arteries. And finally, we have your inferior mesenteric artery. And this is going to the hindgut. Here you have something called the aortic bifurcation. And this is at the level of L4 or the umbilicus. These 2 arteries here are the internal iliac arteries. Then you have an artery here and an artery here. These are the inferior epigastric arteries. As I said before, they are anastomosed with the external iliac artery. And that about wraps it up for the visceral arteries. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you come back and learn more about the human body. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.